Hi everyone, I want to talk with you about the instructions for your first essay, which is going to be a personal narrative. It is based off of the I Believe essays, so it's modeled after that. That's what you've been exploring. You've been exploring sample essays on the I Believe website from NPR. So we're going to take a minute. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to go over the instructions for the I Believe personal narrative essay that you are assigned. So in the instructions, I do talk about that it's inspired from NPR, National Public Radio. This used to be a series on the radio. They have since ceased with this particular series. It's no longer live or ongoing. However, they archived all of the old essays, and this goes way back to like the FDR days. And back in the day, this was based on fireside chats. Franklin Roosevelt would do these fireside chats during World War II, and then they would have this series of different people come on the radio, and what they would do, they were kind of inspirational essays. So this is pretty much a creative writing assignment. However, you do need to adhere to particular elements of composition. It's mainly to get you comfortable with the writing process and get you kind of in the writing groove in general, okay? So one thing I do want to point out on the directions right away is I do give you a copy of the essay grading rubric. This is the rubric I'm going to be using to score your final essay. You're welcome to see it at any point so you know things I'm looking for, how much they count point-wise, that type of thing. So when we go to choose a topic for this, you have to begin thinking about, and this is what our pre-writing exercises have been about, which is something you strongly believe in. And when I say strongly believe in, this is kind of like one of the things that you are living your life by. In your essay, you have to select and develop only one of your beliefs. We have multiple beliefs in our lives, but you're going to focus on one. In the case with this particular essay, the one you write about needs to be formed from your personal experience. So you cannot write about maybe an aunt or a mom or a dad or a grandmother who, you know, had this incredible life experience or their beliefs or that type thing. It has to be from your personal experience. I know a lot of us live with great role models, maybe our parent or our cousin or sister or whatever have gone through some particular life experience or hardship, and they've come out really good on it. No, that's not what this essay is about. This essay is about you. What is an experience you have had that helped form a belief or affirm a belief? So the best belief topics are ones that are pretty close to your heart and have a high personal vesting. In other words, you are living your life by them in some way, shape, or form. And so I give you three examples here. One is on Major Peter Godfrey and his particular essay, and you can find this on NPR if you want to look it up. His essay wrote about the belief in making sacrifices for one's country. That's a belief he is very passionate about and he lives his life by. And then in the essay, he talks about he wears a bracelet bearing the name of a particular sergeant he served with, and that was killed in a landmine back in 2004. So the support for his belief, or in other words, the reasoning for his belief, is based on his experience in the Army and then, of course, the death of his friend. Attorney Betsy Buckwalter wrote in her essay the belief of the importance of a good long walk outdoors. So in her essay, her support, she talks about how she gets so absorbed in her legal work that walking her dog, Ollie, helps her live in the moment, embrace small, unexpected delights in the world. So you can see there's a radical difference in these two beliefs. There's not one better than another, but I do want to encourage you that it doesn't have to be this really big, looming, and it doesn't have to be negative in any way. It can be very positive. It can be the small things in life. For this particular essay, the focus is going to be, how are you supporting it? In other words, what are the experience narrative that you're going to be writing about to support that thesis, to support your belief? In other words, you're telling me how you came to that belief or how it's affirmed through this experience. So here's the nuts and bolts of this essay that you're going to be writing. You need it to include an introduction, and then of course body paragraphs that are supporting your thesis, and then you need a conclusion. Now the conclusion is slightly flexible because we are writing creative nonfiction, and that's very important. This has to be truth. It has to be true to you. So there's a little bit of leeway, but in a nutshell, I am going to want to see an attempt at a conclusion. I want to see a conclusion. In some way, shape, or form, you have to wrap up your narrative. So what do you need in the introduction? The introduction should completely revolve around your thesis statement. What is your thesis statement? A thesis statement is a very clear statement of your belief. And in this particular essay, I want to see your thesis statement start with 2 words. I believe. Very clear to the reader. I believe, and okay, in what? I believe, and then tell me what your thesis, and then don't forget the because. So there's kind of 2 parts. But you are signaling your thesis statement by stating, I believe. So don't use that phrase, don't use those 2 words except in your thesis statement. And the thesis statement has to be within the introduction. Traditionally, it'll best fit at the end of your introduction. So your introduction is kind of leading into your thesis statement, and the thesis statement will be the last 2-3 sentences of your narrative. Sometimes it's 1 sentence. In this case, it may be acceptable to have it as just 1 sentence, as long as it's fully developed. And then, of course, I give you an example. So I believe in the goodness of strangers because I've been saved by one. So again, you're going to be practicing your statement, your thesis statement in another activity. Another example of this, how you can kind of flip it. Because I experienced life as both overweight and underweight, I believe I found the perfect size that's just right for me. Okay, again, trigger, I believe. So it's very important you only use that I believe phrase within your thesis statement. The body paragraphs are discussing specific memories, experiences, or moments that are from your life that help your reader understand the belief. So they should all be linked to your thesis in some way, shape, or form. So paragraphing is not as rigid as it will be in later essays this semester. However, remember every paragraph should start with a topic sentence, and that topic sentence should link to the thesis. Some of the best narratives are really focusing on one experience, one event, and you are fleshing that out within your essay. However, you are allowed to talk about more than one experience, more than one moment to help you build your essay in support of your thesis. However, when you are doing your body, when you are writing those paragraphs, help your reader kind of see how this formed your belief or how it affirmed your belief. Talk about maybe when it was formed, when it was tested, maybe when it changed. Remember, it doesn't always have to be heartwarming, doesn't have to be gut-wrenching, it can be humorous. But it definitely needs to be real and it needs to be unique to you. And then, of course, your conclusion. Again, as I said before, it's flexible, but I want it to have a natural ending. It brings the reader back to your thesis without restating the thesis specifically. You could certainly share your opinion, perception at this time, maybe even a moral of the story without saying directly, hey, here's the moral of the story. You are allowed to restate the thesis. However, you need to rephrase it differently than what you did originally. So the requirements for this particular essay, you need to focus on one belief only, not multiple beliefs, so one belief only. Your essay is concerned with sharing your belief with the reader. Your job is not to convince them your belief is best. You don't want to sway anybody to your belief. It's not a persuasive essay at all. You're simply sharing your belief with the reader and why you believe that, okay? So make sure you do write in first person. You are allowed to use I. You need to avoid the word you. However, I am going to indicate I want you to be very sparing with the word I. I don't want to see a lot of I sentences. Think of rephrasing. How can you say that in first person without using the word I? But you are allowed, because it is a personal narrative, you are allowed to use I. Try to interject your personality into the essay. This is a peek into you and your life. You must only have one single source in this particular essay, and that source must be from a quote or a statistic or something that's in support of your personal belief. You do want to use MLA document design on this. MLA document design, I've given you some resources, but in a nutshell, what that means is double spacing, 1-inch margins, headers, your last name and page number, and then the first 4 lines, and then the date in a particular manner. So again, I've provided resources to help you with that. The one sourcing can be from NPR. So for example, if you read a great essay example and you want to use a quote from there, absolutely. Just make sure that you cite it correctly. Again, we've provided sourcing for you to be able to cite something correctly, both in text and on a works cited page. Writing Center reminder, this would be a great opportunity for you to make your writing consultation. You are going to be required to do at least one this semester, but it's always great to do more than one. Remember, they're doing online appointments, so you can do live one-on-one online, especially if you are hesitant about writing, or you're just not sure about MLA or works cited, or maybe don't know what a thesis statement is. Absolutely, make an appointment. They're free. You can do as many as you want. Okay, and then of course I have the due date posted on Moodle within this assignment. So I hope that that helps with your understanding of what the essay is. I am opening this essay and officially assigning it in week 2. It won't be due yet. However, all of our work in week 2 is geared toward this, pre-writing and building and getting into the drafting of it. So as always, reach out with any questions or concerns. Happy writing.